pair of hikers from Rhode Island have been rescued after getting stuck in treacherous terrain on Mount Washington.
At least one hiker expressed they were feeling symptoms of hypothermia. Officials tell us the hikers were brought to safety around 10 p.m. and thankfully, there were no injuries.
This was no drill, but a real-life emergency deep in the White Mountains.
Broadcasting from the Woodpeckers studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stomp.
So Stomp, I hate feedback, but somebody said I'm distracted during the shows.
Isn't it the funniest thing? Without giving any example or just randomly said that. Do you want me to read the quote?
No. I'm already triggered by it. But I said to the person, they were like, "Yeah, you sometimes you seem distracted." I'm like, half the time I'm like looking at maps as we're talking because I don't know where the hell anything is. I have to look at my map.
I'll give you that. I don't know if it's distracted or you're just multitasking. I think you're a multitasker by nature anyway.
Yeah. You know what does distract me though is like I'm always thinking like, okay, I got to have 2 or 3 questions in my head so that we move interviews along. And sometimes like you don't have the next question and you'll let a pause happen, and I don't like that.
You freak out about the dead air.
Yeah, I don't like dead air.
Well, yeah, dead air to me is fun though because I know I can get rid of it later. So.
Yeah, I have a heart attack. I can't deal with it. So anyway, if I sound like I'm distracted, it's probably because I'm either looking at a map or I'm distracted on something else.
I got it. Yeah.
So anyway, but so we're taking a short break from guests, so it's just me and Stomp tonight. We got to build our catalog back up. So usually we have like a 3 or 4 week buffer of shows, but not right now. We're a little bit behind because of the summer.
Yeah, we're running
Eamon's
hot.
Bank account.
Yeah, we've had a lot of donations, which is great. Mike can pay all the bills and maybe sign up for some relaxing yoga classes to get his focus together again, so we won't be so distracted. Nick Slida, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. That's 10. Rebecca sent us 3. Paul Kaffa, 5. Benson the Basset Hound, which is, I think he's got a crush on the executive producer.
Wait a minute, is that the guy that hikes with the Basset Hound?
No, this is just a Basset Hound named Benson.
All right. Because if it's the guy, there's a famous Basset Hound that hiked all the 4,000 footers, and this Basset Hound is like the most jacked Basset Hound ever. So I saw him on Valley Way. So if that's the Basset Hound that climbed all the 4,000 footers, like hit us up on Instagram. I want that guy on the show. We got to talk about that Basset Hound.
Benson. Well, he was up on the story once, and it was a nice frontal picture of his face, so I didn't get to see the musculature underneath the droopy face and the ears.
I don't know. I haven't seen this Basset Hound around in a couple of years, but like 3-4 years ago, there was a Basset Hound that was climbing all the 4,000 footers, and it was like, I remember meeting him on Valley Way in the wintertime, I think, and I was like, jacked. Holy shit, this is the most jacked Basset Hound I've ever seen in my life. But people will know. He was kind of famous.
That's really cool.
But anyway.
Well,
all right, keep going.
All right, so 10 coffees from Summit Beer Crew. Peanut bought us 5. Discover Rising Tides sent us along 5. Sarah got 1 out to us. And Tony Stewart also got us 5. Tony's a huge fan. She's works down in Meredith. So yeah, that's all the donation activity. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, yeah, we did get a couple things in, just random stuff. Like Sharpen the Sword actually took our advice and went to Reckless Brewery. They're our sponsor. He hiked Mount Carrigain, or he or she, I'm not quite sure. And then after that, they went to Reckless and had a great time, great food, great brew. Sent a picture along of all the beer. So nice. Thanks for hitting them up. That's really fantastic. Stacy T wanted some more tick jokes, but I'm out of tick jokes, everybody. They're done. I just don't have any more. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But yeah, that's all we have. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks everyone, because I think my wife's going to start listening to these shows, and she doesn't realize that we're actually paying for some of this stuff out of pocket, and she's going to be like, wait a minute. So it'll be good to help offset the cost. But one thing I did want to give a plug to he's like a Facebook friend of mine. We've talked for a number of years. Stash, I think he pronounces his name. So Stash has started a new podcast called Inside the Line, the Catskills. So he is a search and rescue guy, pretty avid hiker, has done everything in the Catskills, it sounds like. So he just released a new podcast. So I'm going to put a link in the show notes if anybody wants to check it out. I know nothing about the Adirondacks. I know nothing about the Catskills, but I think he's going to be covering mostly the Catskills. But if you're interested, he gave us a shout out at the beginning of his pilot episode. So we'll put a link in for that too.
Good. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, congrats. I'll have to dig it up. What's the name again?
It is called Inside the Line, the Catskills.
Awesome.
Yep, cool stuff.
Good.
All right, so let's transition into the show summary here. So tonight we are going to be talking about the flags on the 48 event, and then we're also going to share some tips on how to get the most out of fall foliage in the North Country. So if you're tired of sitting in traffic on the Kanc or through Franconia Notch during fall foliage, we're going to break down how not to be an annoying tourist during leaf peeping season. We will give you some tips on the best drives, the best hikes, and the best views during fall foliage season with a focus on not getting in the locals' way, all right? We're also going to break down a recent trip through the Ammonoosuc Range that I did, and then we've got some search and rescue news, and then some other kind of weird news that we've got to cover here. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
All right. So, are you drinking any Reckless tonight, Stomp?
No, I'm having a little Cabernet. I've got a little fussy stomach tonight, not going to lie. Could be the pizza I just snarfed down like 5 minutes ago, too. But, yeah, I've been a little off today. Just tired. It's been a long week.
Very cool. Well,
how about you?
I'm drinking a beer, but it's not Reckless, so I feel like, am I allowed to say another beer, or are we just doing
course.
Reckless?
No, they're totally cool. Stephen was actually like, it would be unrealistic if you guys drank Reckless every week.
Yeah. So I have I've been up in Maine, and we've been on boats in Winnipesaukee and stuff. So we've been grabbing a bunch of different beers. So I got like a mixed package of Smutty Nose. So I'm drinking Smutty Nose Lager. Which is pretty good. It's a regular old school 12-ounce can, which I'm not used to, but it's not bad.
Yeah, actually, back to Reckless. My wife and I are planning on going there this Sunday, I believe, so we'll give you a good update.
Oh, nice.
It'll be my second time. I've only been there once when they premiered the carry-out stout, but yeah, we'll give you a little report. So good beer, right?
Yeah. I'm going to get up there eventually. It's tough. I mean, my daughter just went back to college, and then I'm going on a college tour with my other daughter down into the Mid-Atlantic. So it's just, and work is insane. So I got to get up there, but I have still been hiking in all this insanity. But what about you, Stomp? Any recent hikes? I heard you uncovered you had a secret discovery that you want to share.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've been doing the half hikes, up Kinsman Ridge to get people, and up Bridle Path and this and that, but it's been crazy busy lately for search and rescue. But I can't say where it is because I stumbled upon it. It's a prospecting site. Somebody's been digging up an earth load of quartz in Smarts Brook, and I nature called. I went off trail, bushwhacked in a little ways. Sure enough, there's this 30-foot diameter pit of white. I'm like, what the hell is that? So I walk over, massive diameter quartz, like a 4-foot deep hole that was about 8 feet wide. Unbelievable. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, I'm not a big leave no trace guy, but when it comes to that was a little over the top. I mean, 100-pound boulders of the most beautiful quartz I've ever seen, little teeny things. Yeah, so that was my hike, and I contacted Forest Service because I was just really like, what the hell is going on here? So gave them the GPS coordinates, and they were going to check it out. I did some more research about it too. There's it's called rock hounding. I guess the old school term is prospecting or harvesting or whatever you want to call it, but according to the USDA, it's rock hounding. And apparently in the Whites, there are only 3 places you can do this. And one of them would be Moat Mountain. And the other two would be Deer Hill and Lord Hill mineral collecting area. I guess those are the special areas that you can actually go to dig up stuff. But anywhere else on federal property, probably not a good idea, people. Like, give me a break.
Oh, really? Interesting. So
Yeah.
I think I definitely remember when my kids were younger, there was a place in Evans Notch near like Blueberry Mountain where there was like a prospecting pit or something. Maybe it's one of the Lord's Hill. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I don't know anything about that stuff. But is quartz worth anything? Is it like valuable?
For the small gem dealers like over Dondero's and things like that. I'm not accusing them of selling this stuff, but they sell that stuff like maybe $5 a pop for a little 2-inch by 3-inch piece. Sure, there's money to be made there. But I did a little deeper research, and apparently there is some correlation between these quartz pits and gold. So there is a possibility that somebody could have been digging just to find some gold.
Hopefully whoever's doing it better not be listening. You outed them.
Yeah,
You're
I
gonna
know.
get in trouble, Stomp.
Well,
Good thing your identity is secret.
just direct message me. I'll be gentle with the cuffs, and we'll just take you right in. No problem. We'll keep it low key.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird, but all right. Any other hiking?
No, just a bunch of damn rescues, man. I'm telling you, halfway up this, halfway up that. The week before your trip, or the week of your trip, I mean, it was literally every single day a call came in. It was hot as hell, and every single day. It's just brutal. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we got a whole list of stuff to go through.
Yeah. Have you done anything else?
I have, yeah. So I've done 2 hikes. So we're going to do the Ammonoosuc Notch or Ammonoosuc Range Traverse in a separate segment. But I actually I had a Friday night free. I forget where my wife and kids were. They might have gone up to Maine, and I was heading up there the next day or something. But I had a Friday night free, so I grabbed my buddies from town. We got like the soccer dad crew, and I took them up to Monadnock. And then, matter of fact, just randomly, Nobby Hikes, he had hit me up, sent me a message, and was like, "Are you around?" Because he was heading up north. So I ended up meeting him with 2 of my friends, and when we hiked Monadnock, so we went up.
Oh, you saw that Pumpelly Cave, I guess, right?
Oh yeah. I can't say where it is, but there's a cave there that we went to. So we went there and then went up to the peak and hung out. So it was a Friday night, and it was like not too. I mean, there was nobody there really. The way that we went, we didn't see anybody at all until we got up to the peak, and even then there was only like maybe 5 or 6 people up there. But it was like that night where the wildfire haze was in the air, so it was like it was a good view, but it was just hazy.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you where my quartz is if you show me where the cave is. How's that sound?
Yeah, dude. I know people get like I've heard that too. Like some people are like, you shouldn't give away all these secret areas, and you give out too much information. And it's like,
I get it.
Shit just comes up like when we're talking, and I'm not going to edit this stuff out. Like
Yeah. I mean, I go out of my way to not talk about a few different things, but I've definitely changed my mindset about showing people new places, spread the traffic out, same thing AMC did back in the 70s, just spread it out. Trails will be better for it, and everybody else will have a better time if there's less people on the trails.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've talked about the 4,000 footers. Like everybody is on those 4,000 footers. Like to me, I'm much more interested in like the non 4,000 footers this time of the year. I usually save those for the 4,000 footers for winter when there's less people around. Like I'm on the Terrifying 25 or the 52 with a view, or in Maine or wherever, just because it just gets too crazy this time of the year. But Monadnock for a Friday night hike, I mean, I got out of the car at 3:30. We were on the peak by like 5:15, and then down by dark, 8 o'clock or so. And then we stopped in, I think, Peterborough and had a nice dinner, and it was a great night. It was awesome.
Yeah, I heard a lot of good things about that mountain. It's just too far for me, though. I'm so lazy now.
Yeah, it's a hard ride for me, too. It's like anytime you have to go just east to west across New Hampshire, it's just a pain in the ass because it's just slow going. But, it was an hour and a half.
Right. Well, that's great. Good to see you out there crushing it still, old man.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of hikes in. This podcast is good. Like, I feel like pressure. I'm like, I need topics to cover for hiking. So,
well, here's the big one. This is a heavy topic. We actually decided to do this one a little earlier in the show because it's not a happy, fun topic, but this event here is fantastic and it's definitely uplifting. A couple weeks, we are on top of the 20th anniversary of September 11th, which was September 11th, 2001, Unforgettable Day. So what we want to do is talk about an event that started, I believe, that year and has gone every year since. I couldn't find information about whether they did it last year, 2020, with COVID or not, but I'm going to say they did.
They most definitely did. I was on Jefferson last year with it.
Oh, really? Oh, excellent. Okay, that's fantastic. That's good to know. So before we get into that, I just wanted to reflect upon the day and maybe get your take on where you were, what you were doing, Mike, and how it impacted you.
Yeah, I gotta think back actually, but it's one of those days where you never forget. I was working in Charlestown, and I remember just coming in, and we have like this morning meeting. I'm an HR weasel, so we had like this group meeting, and I remember my boss being like, a plane flew into the World Trade Center. And I think me and my wife had actually just gone to the World Trade Center like 2 years earlier. I remember eating dinner at like that Windows of the World restaurant there. And we saw Al Sharpton came in when we were there. So I remember like vividly like, oh, wow, I've been there. But, pretty soon you realize it was like a terrorist attack. We had one of those like old TVs with like that you saw in like back when we were in high school. It was on the wheels and it was like the big square TV and everybody was watching it. And then I think once the tower went down, everyone was just like, go home. They sent everybody home. I remember driving down Route 1 and everybody's like letting everybody go and everybody's super like, nice to each other, like when we were driving on the roads. And then I went home to North Reading. I know Kristen, we had just found out that she was pregnant with my oldest daughter. So, we just went home to her. We went to her mother and father's house in North Reading and just hung out and watched TV. I remember listening to Howard Stern on the ride home, and, him and, he was ranting about that it was a terrorist attack and everything, but it was just a crazy time. And I do it's kind of sad, like reflecting back, I hadn't thought about this too much, but like I do remember like right after 9/11, like I felt like the country was really united and we were all sort of collectively like together with the same sort of sense of unity around the purpose of the country. And now it just kind of like sucks just thinking about that, because it's just like we're so divided over everything. People are fighting over masks, they're fighting over like politics. It just seems like social media has allowed us to just sort of separate into these tribes where you can just validate whatever thought you have. You can just find people that think the same way as you, and everybody just sort of is in their little corners thinking like, in these little echo chambers. And it just sucks just thinking about like, where we've come in the last 20 years. But, hopefully we'll get through it and, we'll find a way to find some unity. But it's a sad day. And Flags on the 48 is a great reminder. I do think that there's value in continuing to sort of remember it. So, but that's my story. So thanks for listening there. Stomp. Yeah. What about you? Where were you on 9/11?
I was living in Beverly. I'm going to flex my muscle memory here. It's 87 Cabot Street, this dumpy little apartment. And I was working second shift. So I would start at about, I think it was like 2 or 3 p.m. I would start. And so I was home watching the TV when that happened. And I was just transfixed, watched it all unfurl. And I remember specifically just being really paranoid. I remember paranoia for a couple of weeks there, just like, how broad is this threat and everything else, and just being really concerned about that. Also, for that memory of that different kind of shutdown. Do you remember they kept all the planes down, so it was absolute silent, crickets at night. There were no air flights out or into the country, and just really interesting time. But I remember just being super paranoid and trying to shelter the kids from what was going on. And so 20 years later, here we are. It's obviously a mess at the moment with this Afghanistan business, but the purpose of this Flags on the 48 effort is to establish a memorial so that we never forget the people that were lost on that day. And I think that's a really valid and honorable thing to do. The website itself is Flags on the 48. It's all text except for the number 48.org. Flagsonthe48.org. And what they've done is I believe it's the Saturday closest to the actual day of September 11th, they will send groups of hikers up with PVC piping for a makeshift flagpole and flags and everything else you need to summit each of the 48 peaks. It starts around noontime, lasts till about 2 p.m. On the site, I didn't log in this time around because I think it's probably all packed up with plenty of people for these groups. But on the website, there is a forum where you can log in and then pick your peak and join a bunch of other folks that will climb up that morning and set the flag up. And it's a great time. The first time I did this, actually, I didn't even do it. My wife and I were trying to do the 48, so we decided to go up to Osceola. And we get to the top, and sure enough, there was the flag there and a bunch of people up there. And I remember somebody was playing bagpipes. So it was really impressive. Very emotional, memorable hike that was. The second time I did it was with Nick Rouleau, who's a good friend, and we went up Moosilauke. And it's funny, I'm sure people will remember this September 11th, anybody that was on this hike, but it was monsoon rain. And by the time we got to Moose, it was, 60-mile-an-hour winds and just heavy, heavy rain. And it was just unforgettable. So the hike is a very memorable experience, and I highly recommend it for anybody.
So the whole purpose of this is so I've never done this.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I've never done it is because I do Reach the Beach every year.
Right.
And I think most years, Reach the Beach is like a running relay that goes from Bretton Woods to Hampton, New Hampshire. So I think almost every year I'm doing that, and I haven't been able to do it. But last year, for whatever reason, I was hiking, and I had to do King Ravine for the Terrifying 25. So I did a big loop on King Ravine, and I went up to Jefferson and down the Castle Trail. But the flag, and I had no idea, didn't even realize it. But when I got there, the flag was up there, and what they do is they have I don't know what it's like for other places, but on the one on Jefferson was a 20-foot pole, and then they stick a flag on it. So you got to carry all that stuff up.
Right. Yeah. So everybody has a piece of the PVC piping. Somebody carries the flag and rope and whatnot. And, generally you'll have a 4-point rope system. So 4 lengths of rope going out to every direction just to tie it down to local trees. Because generally it's it's windy as hell, or you have some bad weather. It's always a challenge keeping that pole up.
What do they do Zealand and East Osceola and Galehead? Do they in Owl's Head? Do they
the shrouded summits?
How do they do that?
Well, East Osceola, that same day, my wife and I hiked over to that, and there was a group of Boy Scouts with their team leaders, and they extend the length of PVC piping so that it gets above the trees. If you've ever been over to East Osceola, those trees are damn high. So they peek through the canopy. So
very cool.
So from above, you can, even from, say, Franconia Ridge, if you look over real close, you can see flags over on Bond Cliff and things like that. So there are some vantage points that are really great for this day. And another side point, if the weather allows, Air National Guard will generally buzz everybody a couple times in the Black Hawk. So that's a thrill. It really is.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'm on the site right now, Stomp, and it looks like I'm just kind of going through this quickly. So this is August 20th. I think this show's going to be...
Dude, you're so distracted.
Yeah, I'm distracted again. So this show will be released, I think, on the 27th. But I'm looking here, there's, so it looks like everybody has grabbed a peak, but there's spots that you can join this group with on Mount Bond.
Nice.
There's 3 spots on Bond Cliff. There's a spot on Cabot. Carter Dome looks to be.
How about West Bond?
West Bond is actually. Yeah, there's somebody signed up, but he's got 8 spots left.
Oh, wow.
Looks like Nick has Owl's Head.
Yeah. Oh, good for him. That's great.
Yeah.
See, it was tough for us because we're actually doing a statewide training for all the search and rescue groups. So it's like, what do I do? Go there or do this? I mean, obviously I'm going to go to the statewide, but I'll be there in spirit for sure.
Yeah. And you're right. It does look like the Boy Scout troop has Osceola, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, we're expecting Air National Guard to come to the training in the afternoon. So if you're at the peak, I guarantee you're going to see a Black Hawk buzz you. It's probably inevitable.
Nice, yeah. So I definitely, like I said earlier, like I'm sort of down on hiking the 4,000 footers, but on that Saturday, is it actually on September
this year?
11th
It is.
This year?
The 20th is the actual day, which is a rarity.
Got it. Yeah. So get out there on one of those peaks. So you don't need to be like part of the crew. Like you can just randomly hike, and like that's what I did last year. Is I just randomly hiked, and I just saw like there was probably like I would say there was like 80 people on Jefferson, which kind of sucked, but it was cool because it was like it was crazy. But I didn't see anybody like the route I went other than just being on the peak. That was the only time I saw anybody, so it was okay. But it does get crowded, but it's worth it. You know, it's a good event, and I think that you can kind of donate or something to, to the organization if you want. Just check out the website. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah. Never forget.
All right. Yep. Anything else on this, or we want to move on to the next segment?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, we're doing fall foliage. So, Stomp, you said that it was too early to do this. Like, I disagree.
Well, I mean, my idea of foliage is October, Columbus Day weekend. So for me, knowing that we're like bumping these out every week in terms of being on time every week, I figured it could wait. But I guess you could spread the word a little bit and get the episode out there and stuff.
And I'm sort of setting this up for, the hikers listen to this show, but also like if you have somebody that is not a hiker that's thinking about like, oh, I want to drive up to New Hampshire and check out the foliage, like this segment is for people that don't hike and want to find a good way to sort of drive up and in a way that doesn't clog up the roads for all the local folks. So nothing that we're going to cover today has anything to do with like the Kanc or Lincoln or North Conway or any of those hot spots, Franconia, Notch. Everything we're going to cover on this segment has nothing to do with any of those areas.
Yeah, and you can argue that Columbus Day weekend could be the peak here in Franconia, but the season starts several weeks earlier, way up. So if you wanted to travel north, you could start seeing it much earlier.
Yeah, and I went online, and again, it's been pretty like rainy in Massachusetts, but I don't know if New Hampshire's different, and I don't know what effect that has on like when foliage starts or whatever. But I went online to find like a site, and basically like the North Country, it's like the last week in September through the first week in October, so like a 2-week period. You've got Dixville Notch, Pittsburg, Grafton Notch, all that. Is it Coos County or Coos County?
I believe it's Coos.
Coos County, yeah. So,
but don't trust my pronunciations on anything.
Yeah. So somebody tell us how to pronounce that. I'm not going to say it again because I don't want to be embarrassed. And then like the White Mountains region is like the first week in October through the second week in October is like peak. And then down in the Lakes region, Ossipees, Belknaps, like it's like the second, third, into the fourth week of October. And then like the last week of October, you've got southern New Hampshire and then into the Berkshires is typically like the time frame. So for me, I'm breaking this segment down into like 3 different areas. One is like cool drives that you can take. So if you have any family members that aren't into hiking, but you want to bring your grandparents on a nice drive, or you want to bring your kids on a nice drive, I've got a couple of suggestions for those, and then Stomp's gonna give some advice on those as well. And then we've got a few easy hikes, and then we've got some epic hikes that we want to cover here. So Stomp, just to begin with, we're going to talk about the driving stuff. So I already talked about this, like avoid the typical roads like 93 North, 16 the Kanc, Lincoln, North Conway. Like, you're a local. Like, I don't have any idea. Like, all I ever hear is people bitching about like traffic around Foliage, but I don't have any idea. Like, is it really as bad as they say it is during foliage season?
It is. Yeah, there's no question about it, especially that Columbus Day weekend. You can't get near the Notch. I mean, it's standstill traffic for, it'll take an hour to get through that. And last year, it was the worst I've ever seen it. I think the traffic probably started at exit 33. And then when you went down to Lincoln, the traffic getting into Lincoln was the longest I've ever seen it. So I don't know if it was related to people just wanting to get out or what, but man, yeah, there are some spots that if you want to go see foliage and you're just gonna sit in traffic, if that's your cup of tea, then go for it.
And I can't stress enough, like, I've been stuck behind, like, rubberneckers on the Kanc so many times. Like, it's just brutal when you get stuck behind someone that's going like 35, 40 miles an hour, and you just want to, it's not that I just lose patience. So I stay off the Kanc, stay away from Franconia, stay away from 93 and 16. And obviously you're asking me, like, well, then where the hell am I going to go? But what I'm going to tell you is, like, if you're, and I'm kind of assuming, like, okay, if you're a Mass resident and you're going to come up to New Hampshire, or you're somebody that's not from the area and you're flying into Logan, I'm kind of making that assumption. And for me, if you're talking like a good drive early season, in my opinion, the best way to approach fall foliage for me, if I was going to go up in that first or second week during like the North Country, I would take 95 north up into Portland. Obviously you're still going to be dealing with traffic, but I would take Route 26 into like Newry and Bethel and that area from the Boston area. And from there, you can take 26 right up into the Grafton Notch area. And I haven't been around that area during foliage, but my guess is that it's not going to be as crowded. It is a one-lane road once you get into the Notch, but I can't imagine that it'll be as crowded as you're going to be dealing with.
I have a story about that, but we'll get to it in a little bit. You're definitely right. There's less people for sure.
Yeah. So my perspective is 95 north, go up past Portland, take Route 26 through Newry into Bethel, and then into Grafton Notch. That road is amazing. The foliage up there is going to be unbelievable. There's a bunch of little pull-offs into different parking lots where you can take pictures. And then you can go all the way up to Dixville Notch. You can check out the balsams. And then on your way home, what I suggest you do is come home via Route 5, and that will take you by Lovell, Maine into Fryburg. You can stop in Newry, Bethel, Fryburg. You can cut into Cornish, Maine, take Route 25, and then eventually you'll get onto Route 16. But there's a whole variety of options there where you're not going to be stuck in traffic nearly as bad as you would if you were going over the Kanc. It's a longer day, but it's a way more epic day than dealing with the crowds.
Yeah. I have to just modify the Kanc. I mean, when we say the Kanc, I think most people tend to think Lincoln over to Conway, that stretch. But I do have to say that from, you'll have a little bit of traffic from Woodstock, but if you take the Kanc, it's still the Kanc over to North Haverhill, you're going to go up over Lost River, and that's probably less traffic, and you're going to get some beautiful views up there. What would it be? It would be the Kinsman's, really. It's awesome. So that's a nice little stretch.
So that's a good segue for like a mid-season. So if you're going, that first ride I was talking about is kind of early season. Mid-season, the drive that I would suggest is it's kind of along that area there. And this is more of a, taking 93 but cut off from Concord. And what you want to do is make your way over to the Hanover area and map out to a road called the Grafton Turnpike. And you can hit the Grafton Turnpike, which is down below Hanover, New Hampshire on the western side of the state. And it's like a dirt road. Part of it's a dirt road, part of it's paved. but Grafton Turnpike is like a 15-mile road that brings you into the Dartmouth Skiway. And when foliage is popping on that road, it is absolutely amazing. I actually did that drive last year coming back from an AT section hike that I did, and I came back that whole way into Worcester to go visit my daughter. But you can hit the Grafton, and it's not Grafton Notch, which is in the far north. This is in the western part, but you hit the Grafton Turnpike to the Dartmouth Skiway, and then what you can do is cut over to Route 10, and then that goes along the western part of the state, and then you can reconnect to Route 25A, and then that connects you to Route 3A, and you can drive into Franklin and back out 93 south near Concord. So it's a big loop of roads, and there's a ton of awesome foliage there.
Nice. Not necessarily mountain views, but foliage.
Some mountain views, like when you get up onto that Route 10 section there, you're in the western part, like you can see like Mount Cube, and you can see, I'm trying to remember what else is in there. That one with the fire tower. I don't know if it's Stinson or... No, it's Cube and Smarts Mountain you can see.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep. But yeah, those are the two. So that's mid-season, and then for me, like later in the season, like I'm always a big fan of like Route 113 in Tamworth, and there's a million different ways you can get in there and drive around, and that takes you near the Ossipees, and it takes you up near past Conway and Whiteface in that area.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So those are my suggestions. So I'll include these in the show notes so that people can reference them. And they're great drives, all day drives. Plan on being gone for 8 hours if you're coming from Mass.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I would suggest skipping that eastern side of the Kanc, but from Woodstock up and over, I believe it's Route 118 from Woodstock, and that's the Kanc, all the way over to Route 25 in Warren. That's a beauty. That basically goes up and over the southern tip of Mount Moosilauke, and there are some pullover spots there too that let you look generally east towards all the mountain ranges and the lakes region. That's a good option. Route 116, which basically runs from Benton to Franconia, is really nice. You have, when you're heading north, you have the Kinsman Range to your right, and then just rolling hills and open grass fields. That can be a really nice drive. Less crowded certainly than 93, and as a matter of fact, that's sort of a secret shortcut to get to the Notch if you want to bypass all the 93 traffic. Just head north, right up 116, straight in, it dumps right out into Franconia. And there are different routes to get to Bald Mountain, and a few different vantage points that are great. And last for me, I just want to make a note. If you have the correct kind of car, consider doing just a backwoods road, like Sandwich Notch Road, for instance. If you want to see foliage, you're going to see some beautiful, beautiful places, and there are spurs that you can pull off of. And I think that, Hall's Pond, I believe, might be one of the series of ponds up on Sandwich Notch Road. But, you drive down a little road and you have a pond and a mountain in the background and plenty of views for foliage. Yeah, and that's what I like about that Grafton Turnpike, is that it's just like a 15-mile dirt road that you can just follow along, and it's amazing. But it's really it's not, you don't need you can drive a car on it, so it's pretty well groomed. But I think Sandwich Notch is a little more rugged. Sandwich Notch is not for the not for the faint of heart. That's a rough road. But if you have a truck, you're probably fine. Even an SUV. Something like Nash Stream Forest, that road is perfect. It's dirt, but it's nice and flat, and that's a nice road if you want to see some foliage. But Route 3 is probably one of my favorites. It's, from, say, Whitefield to Lancaster, that's how you get into the Nash Stream Forest, where the Percy Peaks would be, and the quaint little village of Stark, which is probably one of the most beautiful little towns I've ever seen in New Hampshire. There's this a bridge and a church and this cliff wall in the back. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. That road in particular, that Route 3 dumps into 110 as it passes Stark, and from there you just follow along the Ammonoosuc River, and that is a beautiful trip if you want to see some foliage.
Yeah, and that's that would be an earlier season trip just because it's farther north.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right. Well, I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is cut and paste normally we just try to do like one line or whatever. I'm just going to cut and paste the raw notes that Stomp and I are both using for these rides or these drives so that you can reference them. And, there's no right or wrong way. It's just basically like find the roads, map out your own route, and you should be going into these drives with the expectation that you're going to be gone for a long day and that you're not in any rush, and you should hopefully avoid a lot of traffic and see some amazing views, because we really just need to get people off of the main areas and get people more spread out. And that's why you're seeing us talking about like going up from Maine into New Hampshire, going to the western side of the state, and then also recommending a lot of time in the far north.
Bravo. How about some hikes?
So, yeah, let's get out of our cars here. So exactly. I put together a list of some stuff here, and to be honest with you, one of these I've done in the fall. The rest of them are like hikes that I've done where I'm like, oh my God, I got to come back during the fall because it's going to be amazing. But the first one is Pine Mountain, which is right off of Route 16 past Pinkham Notch. You start at the Pine Link Trailhead, which I forget, what is that road that takes you into Pine Link Trailhead?
I've never been there. I can't recall going there.
I think it's Dolly Cop or something. It's that campground there. Okay. And you go past the campground, and then you go about a mile or two in, and you get to Pine Link Trailhead. And Pine Mountain is like a privately owned mountain, but they allow people to hike.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar.
Yeah, it's an amazing mountain. It's an easy hike. It's like I think it's about 3 miles round trip, and you start the hike off. You're probably about a mile on a dirt road, and then you get into the trail. And then the interesting thing about Pine Mountain is it sits right at the foot of Mount Madison. So that's why I think it's such a great foliage hike, is that when you get up on the cliffs, you're literally looking at Mount Madison right in front of you. And my thought is that when you get up there, during foliage season, you're going to see all of Madison just completely in color. So,
yeah, I was wondering if it was on the Mount Washington side or the Carter side, but I got it now.
Yep. And the next one, Stomp, is the one we did this hike with Nobby, but Mount Martha and Owl's Head. Remember when we were on Owl's Head, and I was like, this has got to be the most amazing place to be during foliage.
I know, it's incredible. The first time I went up with my wife, we never went over to Owl, and I regret it now. It's the most amazing little peak. Getting down from there was pretty hairy, but yeah, it's amazing. This little rock, it's almost like a mini Mount Chicora up there with a little more tree cover, and the view is incredible. It looks straight over to Mount Washington.
Yeah, and this is not the Owl's Head that's in the middle of the Pemmy. This is the Owl's Head. I think Mount Martha and Owl's Head are peaks on Cherry Mountain.
It's north of Twin Mountain, the city.
Yeah, exactly. The next suggestion I have, Stomp, is a little-known mountain that I don't think a lot of people go to. It's called Green Mountain in Effingham. So it's right off of Route 16. You take Route 25, and it's a cool mountain. It's sort of like a wide-open forest, and it's got pretty easy trails to deal with. It's maybe about a 4-mile hike round trip, and they've got a really cool observation tower, fire tower that you can go up to, and it looks out into western Maine and then gives you a nice view of the Ossipee Range as well when you get up there.
Excellent.
And last for me but not least is my favorite little hometown mountain, which is Burnt Meadow in Brownfield, Maine. And this is an easy sort of 4 or 5 mile round trip hike. Awesome views into, again, western Maine. You can get some peaks of the presidentials from the backside, and the foliage never disappoints. So,
excellent. Yeah. Well, I've got a couple.
What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, mine are funny. I tend to brave the crowds a little more than you, I think. Yeah. Artist Bluff, I mean, though it's so crowded, to me, it's still one of the premier spots. I hate to say it, but you're going to have people there, but there's something about the cliff there and Bald Mountain, just the whole loop there, that is just this overwhelming sense of vertigo. You have Eagle Cliff, and then right behind that you have Franconia, and then canyon to the right when you're on the cliffs. It's just, if you look just slightly north, you can see all the foliage. It's a short little hike, very easy, but yeah, a little bit crowded. I had to throw that in there because it is really a unique place.
You have to put the shame drop when you say that.
Yeah, well, it gets even worse, right? Because I'm going to say Mount Pemmy.
Okay, keep the shame drop.
Yeah, I know, I can't help it. But these places, they're easy hikes. I do have one after Mount Pemmy that is perfect. But Mount Pemmy's awesome, and I think if you take the lesser known trail up to Indian Head / Mount Pemmy, you'll get a great view, and it's a fairly modest hike, not too bad. It's under 3 miles.
I haven't hiked it. That's going to be where I have one hike. I have one hike left for the 52 with a view. I've got one left for Terrifying 25, and one left for the 4,000 footers. So Pemmy is going to be my final 52 with a view. So I'll get up there soon.
Yeah. Oh, you're going to love it. And then my final suggestion for an easy hike would be Bald Mountain, which is off of the western Kinsman mountain range. Again, I believe it's straight up 116 that I just talked about.
Okay.
It's awesome. That's maybe 2 miles up, and then it's just an open cliff face and ledges, and it's a western view, so you get a nice sunset. There are so many others. I had a really hard time with this section, to be honest with you. I just had to pick the ones that just came to right to the top of my mind.
Yeah,
it is a challenge, though. I mean, you could throw in Jennings, maybe, but that's like borderline between easy and hard. Jennings Peak.
These were. I think I told you I was like they have to be like easy, like within 4 or 5 mile tops. So
yeah, that's a tough one. But they're out there.
Yeah. And then I had asked you to like do some epic ones as well. I put a couple in. Like I don't know how epic they are, but what did you have for like sort of long hikes that you really think are awesome in the foliage?
The greatest experience I've ever had for foliage was actually on the Ammonoosuc Range. My wife and I went out by car in my truck out to Goose Eye, which is, what would you say, Mike, maybe halfway through that range, maybe 10 miles out, 10, 15 miles?
Yeah, it's about 15 miles into the range.
Yeah. When we arrived at the trailhead, there were 2 cars, didn't see anybody the entire day, got to the top, and it's a northerly hike for sure, so you got to time it right. And I think we got it just as it was transitioning into the Whites themselves, a little further south. So just the view up there was amazing. That's my number one. Goose Eye is great. I mean, I guess you could do, what is it, Mount Success?
Yeah.
Okay, just south of Goose Eye if you wanted a little less of a drive. But the southern tip of the Ammonoosuc Range, which we'll talk about, is a good option if you're trying to avoid some people and trying to get some epic foliage. And then West Bond is like literally one of my favorites for the 48. And what that is that's a spur trail off of the Pemmy Loop, which is the eastern wall of the 33-mile Pemmy-Jawasset Loop that we've talked about. And what it does basically is it puts you out into the middle of the entire Pemmy wilderness, and it's just this incredible 360 view. That would be one of my picks. And then lastly would be Whaleback, which it's an abandoned trail, and if you do some research, it used to be the old Osseo Trail. You can get to it from the current Osseo Trail, or if you do a little research, you can get to it by the Clare Brook condominiums in Lincoln. But Whaleback is another beautiful one if you want an epic hike with great views into Mount Carrigain, Scar Ridge, and so many others. So that's a couple for you.
Yeah, I want to do that Whaleback hike. And specifically, the reason why I want to do that Whaleback hike with you is because I want to take a look at that area, because I'm always interested in that area because of the death of Patrick McCarthy that happened, I think, like 2013. And I really like the idea that kid climbed that mountain like that. Just doesn't sit with me. I just don't buy it. But I know it's controversial. But
and let's plan that.
I've talked about that before, but I want to plan that hike and check it out.
You really should. I mean, Whaleback is one of my top 5. It's just such a great hike. Maybe we can do live on location.
Yeah, on the spot. the investigators will be checking it out.
Special live episode on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Mike and Stomp solve a crime. So I think for me, I had a couple of like more epic hikes, which I don't even know if they're epic, but they're just cool hikes. So I had here Morgan and Percival, which are, they're not it's not a long hike, but like the views out into this, I think it's the Squam Lakes region, is unbelievable. I've been on there during peak foliage, and it's just amazing.
Okay.
And then the other hike is Mount Cube, which I had talked about earlier, and that during foliage, I had hiked that last year with my friend Tom, and we hit that during foliage, and it was just amazing. So I definitely recommend Morgan and Percival, and then Mount Cube as good spots to hike. Just if you're going to do Morgan and Percival, just make sure you get there early and expect that you're going to see some crowds, even if you do get there early.
Here's another pointer for you, a little secret spot. Eyes are rolling in the audience right now, but I don't give a damn.
Nice.
Just south of Morgan Percival, there's Webster Slide. Does that ring a bell? It's part of the Squam Range.
Yeah, you've talked about that before.
Okay, so if you pass Webster Slide, it's just south of Morgan Percival, whatever, and then continue on past the summit, or if you approach from the south and ascend towards Webster Slide, there is a bench that somebody installed that overlooks the lakes region and Rattlesnake Mountain, which is across the way. It's beautiful, absolutely stunning. My wife and I were like, damn it, let's just stay here on this bench and skip Webster Slide summit. It was just so impressive. So that could be a really nice spot too. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's a secret.
Gonna get hate mail for that one. Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, sorry, but all right, that's good stuff. So the other, we should probably just talk about like a reminder, because people will be listening to this at the end of August, but by the time foliage kicks around, I don't know when daylight savings is, but regardless, it gets darker early. Bring your headlamp. What else do they got to worry about?
Gets, every day the sun sets, and in the fall, once that sun dips below the horizon, it gets cold really quick. So pack for cold temperatures. It's time to start digging out the winter stuff when you're going out for foliage hikes. And watch out for those leaves. I mean, the trails, you can go off trail much easier if you're not paying attention to the blazes on the trees. But just watch out, because it can generally be pretty slippery on the trails themselves. You don't know what's underneath them, whether it's a rock or a root. So take your time. Make sure you have your footing.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So hopefully this is helpful for people, and this will be released about a month before foliage season starts. So you got plenty of time to do your research, and again, stay off the busy areas and try to work the edges of New Hampshire if you're going to come up.
Yeah, have fun, people.
SLASR's hiking topic of the week.
So next segment here, we're going to be moving on. We're going to be talking about, I did a recent hike with my friend Tom. We did a 2-night, 3-day Ammonoosuc Traverse. So this is like 31 miles, I think, and something like 12,000 feet of elevation gain.
Yeah. Amazing.
We dealt with all kinds of different crazy conditions, which I'll get into. But do you want to, Stomp, can you give an overview of the region? And I think you've hiked this before, or parts of it. So can you just give your perspective about this hike?
Yeah, I have very limited exposure. I've heard about the place for several years from different people. And, they say it's one of the greatest areas in the region. And I finally got up recently myself, and went up Goose Eye a couple times, and the rumors are true. It's absolutely beautiful. Some people that do the AT call the most difficult mile of the AT. I guess that's probably up in the northern Notch area, correct, Mike?
There's a very similar to the Ice Gulch. There's like a mile section of what's called Hoosick Notch, which is basically a boulder scramble that is like, it's just sort of right in the middle of a huge chasm, I guess, of two cliffs on either side.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it starts pretty much near, Gorham in New Hampshire, just north of Mount Washington. I guess it was formed by a glacier 12,000 years ago, and it created the range and some of the most difficult terrain you'll ever experience in the Whites and north of the Whites. There are 10 peaks on this range. Old Speck at the northernmost, I believe that's the northernmost peak, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that comes in at 4,000 feet. So it's 4,160 feet. You have Goose Eye, which is 3,860. Mount Carlo, which is just south of Goose Eye. Mount Success, which is a really nice hike. You've done that one. I have not done that one, but I've known Mount Success from all the people telling me about the plane crash that's up there and just the wreckage of a plane. Did you find that plane crash, Mike?
I've been there. We didn't do it this time. We were just a little bit pressed for time with the hike, but I did it solo last year. And I do have, a matter of fact, I can put some pictures up on the show notes. There was a plane crash in 1959 that is just below the summit of Mount Success. And plane is pretty well intact. I think there was 7 or 8 people on board. 2 of the flight crew had passed away, but the remaining passengers and crew did survive. I think they survived like 3 or 4 days on the mountain before the rescue crews could get to them. I mean, it was 1959. It was a snowstorm. It was, kind of a crazy crash, but I can put some links about that in the show notes too.
Yeah, some people do this as a backpack, 30-mile backpack. If you're into just picking one of these, one at a time, then you can access most of these hikes by the Lake Success Road, which is unpaved, and you access that in Gorham. Or Berlin. I think that's Berlin, actually, just a little north of...
You're talking about Success Pond Road. There's a Success Pond Road which goes on the northern part of it, where you can access like sort of the middle part of the Ammonoosuc Range.
Oh, so you can get right to the middle part.
You can get to like Mount Success. You can get into Hoosick Notch from Success Pond Road as well.
Okay, so this is a different road. This starts in Berlin.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is how I got to Goose Eye, and it's hilarious because it's a rutted logging road, so every foot or so there's a rut, and it's just this constant, like you're riding over a nonstop speed bump that just never ends. So it's like a the whole time. The slower you go, the worse it is. So on the way in, my wife and I took our time, and I don't know, I think it was like 10 miles in to get to Goose Eye. It was incredible. So going nice and slow. And after the hike, I decided just to floor it. So it was amazing, because what happens, you're going so fast, like maybe 50 miles an hour or so, you more or less float over all of the speed bumps. So it's a lot easier, but it's a hair-raising drive out. So yeah, keep a lookout for the roads that run parallel to this range on the western side of the range. It'll give you access to some of the most amazing views I've ever seen. There's no question about it.
I'll just give a summary of the 3-day trip that I did.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So me and my friend Tom, we've been doing sections of the AT in New Hampshire, and then we got into Maine this time. So I had wanted to do this section. And originally our plan was we were just going to spot cars at one end or the other. So we start at Rattle River, which is where you exit the Whites essentially in Shelburne, Gorham area. And then there's a hostel right there called Rattle River Hostel. And then you have to do a little bit of a road walk to get up to I forget the name of the trail it's the Appalachian Trail, but there's another name to it that takes you up to Mount Hayes. So with all the cars getting broken into, there's been a rash of cars that have been getting broken into, getting their catalytic converters stolen. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what, let's just spot a car at and then we end at Grafton Notch. So we decided to just spot a car at Grafton Notch, and then we got a shuttle driver. So we had Maura, who was actually on the Facebook group, she runs a shuttle service. So I had reached out to her to say hey, can you pick me up? And me and my friend. So she came, and we just set a time to say we're going to meet you at this time. And she came, picked us up, and then drove us from Grafton Notch down to Rattle River where we started. So I'll put a link in the show notes for Maura because her shuttle service, she'll go anywhere. She's, you got to pay her, obviously, but she'll go anywhere, and she's great. And she knows a lot about the area, so I'll link that in the show notes. But she basically dropped us off around 11:30. The day that we went was the hottest day of the year, so it was insane. Luckily, I had a new backpack, and I had dialed my gear in. So I think I was like 13 pounds base weight, and then I was carrying maybe another 10 pounds of water and food with me. So I wasn't too heavy, which was nice, but it was still pretty hot. So we did about 11 miles. We went from Rattle River to Gentian Pond Shelter. And, that day is like, it's not, it's a fair amount of climbing, but it's not too crazy. It was just, I think the big peak that we went on was Wocket Ledge. And then there was Trident Pass and Cascade Mountain, and we got some decent views there. But Gentian Pond was just sort of like, it was ridiculously hot. We just sort of got our backpacking legs under us and then went right to bed because we got there a little bit late. I think it took us about 7 hours or so to get there just because it was so hot. And then the next day was probably like what I would say is like the most epic day because you start off by going up Mount Success and then over Mount Carlo or Mount Carlo.
Right.
And then that's where you get into the Goose Eye, which is a really unique mountain. There's some like crazy like ladder scrambles
to get
and
to
like
Goose
rock
Eye.
scrambles. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah, we decided not to go up Carlo and just do the old Goose Eye Trail or whatever it is, and it was like a 3 mile straight up. It was really not too bad.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then when you get you go by Goose Eye, and then there's this other North Peak.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then to get to North Peak, it's almost like you're hiking in the Scottish Highlands. It's like a weird sort of, you're above tree line, but it feels like you're like in the Scottish Highlands or something because it feels like a plateau that you're on, and you're above tree line the whole time. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's different than anywhere else in the Whites that I've seen.
Right. It's stunning when you first see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was cool too because it was like right in the bubble with the AT through hikers. So Gentian Pond had it was full, but not crazy. There was maybe 15 through hikers there, and there was a crew, and we met a few of them, and we were talking a little bit. But
did you summit all the 10?
We skipped Goose Eye Summit. It's like 0.2 of a mile.
Yeah.
But, and we skipped like the plane crash on Mount Success. Like the first day was hot, and like me and Tom don't hike at the same pace, so it's a little bit different. Like there's a lot of like separation and then waiting for each other and stuff. So it was a little bit like, I didn't want to do too many side adventures, so we mostly stuck to the AT. But on the second night we got to Full Goose Shelter, and Full Goose Shelter was like full because there was like southbound people hitting it from Grafton Notch, and then there was northbound AT through hikers that were in the bubble, and then you had the weekend warriors like me and Tom. So we got a tent platform, luckily, and I passed right out. But we did get a chance to hang out with, we met a few through hikers. We had made a friend with a hiker named Birdbath, cool kid from New York. He goes to school in Chicago, so he was talking to us for quite a while. And then when we woke up the next morning for day 3 was where we had to do Mahoosic Notch and then climb Mahoosic Arm.
You must have been wiped.
And, no, we were fine. I was fine.
Yeah.
But it started raining like first thing in the morning. Like I was looking at the radar and I was saying to Tom, I was like, dude, you better get your stuff ready. It's going to start dumping. And sure enough, it started dumping, and we were all sitting in the shelter. There was like 25 people in the shelter. It was somebody's birthday, so we were able to sing happy birthday to one of the through hikers and stuff. But I said to Tom, I was like, let's get rolling. And, it stopped raining right when we left. And we were able to get through Mahoosic Notch, which is the boulder scramble. We were able to get through that without it raining. And sure enough, like
race against
the second
time.
it got done, we were like filling up water. And Tom says to me, he's like, yeah, you had told me that it was going to really start like pouring rain out. And luckily we dodged that bullet. And I was like, yeah, well, don't get too comfortable, because sure enough, within 5 minutes of him saying that, it was the most torrential downpour for probably about an hour. Just torrential downpour on top of us. And Birdbath had passed us with another through hiker named Tui, and we saw them. They had just set up like they had a tent, but they just set it up as a tarp, and they were sitting under it cooking meals. So they're definitely smarter and more experienced than us, but we were soaked.
Birdbath.
They were like, oh, you can hang out here if you want, but
how ironic.
Yeah, they had trail names. But I was like, let's get going. I had to get out because I wanted to get home and see the family because my daughter was going back to school. So I kind of made Tom push on. I think he would have been happy to say, like, let's just throw a tent and wait it out. But I was like, no, we're going. But we had to climb Mahoosic Arm. So people say Mahoosic Notch is the most difficult mile on the AT. I say the climb up to Mahoosic Arm in the rain was by far the most difficult hike I've ever done anywhere. Made Garfield Ridge look like a walk in the park. It made anything that I've done on the terrifying 25 look easy.
Just because of the rain?
Huntington, oh my God, it was just like, Stomp, it was hiking up a waterfall.
Oh, yeah.
And there's like there was no holds. Like there was some trees and all that, but you just had to go right up the waterfall.
Yeah, because
it was insane.
Because I read it can take you, 2 hours just to go through that boulder field, the longest mile?
Yeah, that took about an hour and a half or so. And then, which was a grind. And then right into Mahoosic Arm, which was just insanity. And we were wiped by the time that happened. I had blisters and my feet were hurting bad, but we just pushed on and, we made it out to Grafton Notch. I think it ended up being, that was another 10 or an 11 mile day with, it took us about 9 or 10 hours to get out there, but it was nice. There was some Trail Magic folks hanging out in Grafton Notch, so I got a Coke and I got some Cheez-Its and an apple when I got out.
Was it Governor Sununu?
And then I was about an hour.
Did you see that?
No.
Dude,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards. But no, this was 2 through hiker ladies that were hanging out waiting. But it was like, this was the most amazing Coke that I've ever had when I finished up. And I told them, I was like, I'm not a through hiker. If you don't want to give me magic. And they're like, no, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good for you, man. That's a killer, ambitious hike. It's great.
Brutal hike. I mean, it was like 10 or 11 mile days, which doesn't sound like that much, especially for these through hikers, but like, it's like over 4,000 feet of elevation. And the first day was like oppressive heat. Second day was hot, but manageable. And then the third day was just it was like pouring rain, ridiculous wind blowing when we got up to Old Spec. And then all of a sudden the sun came out and it was like, it became cool. So we experienced every bit of weather outside of winter.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it's good. Highly recommended if you're looking for a backpacking trip.
Yeah. I'm living vicariously through your adventures.
Yeah. Dude, my gear was good though. I was proud of myself.
That's not heavy at all. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that's all I really needed was what I brought. I didn't bring a lot of extra stuff, and I finished my food, halfway through day 3, I was done, which was perfect because I didn't want to carry a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And
my water situation, like there's no issues with water.
Well, I was going to ask you
I
that.
Just used,
what are the sources up there?
I mean, it's like stick your finger in the air and look around and you'll see, there's water everywhere in that range.
Huh, okay, cool. Up on the ridge too? Really?
Yeah, I mean, there was some sections, 3 or 4 miles where you'd go and there was no water, but for the most part, like you were dropping into coals and you could find water, and pretty much every coal that you went through, there was a water source.
Yeah, I'm dying to get up there again to do that ridge from Goose Eye north to the Notch. That ridge looks beautiful, wide open.
Yeah.
Above tree line.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome.
I bet.
I'll do that with you. Oh. I'll take you up there. But the water system I had too was perfect. Like I just used like the AT through hikers. A lot of them do the same things. I got a smart water bottle and I just had the Sawyer Mini screwed into it. And then, so when I need water, I just fill up that liter, screw the filter on, and then just go. It took like 2 seconds versus like messing around with a bag and squeezing and all that. I didn't have to deal with any of that.
Squeeze the bag.
Yeah, I finally get my shit together when it comes to backpacking, I think.
Good, it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
So Mahoosic Notch Traverse, definitely do it if you're curious. Next segment here is recent search and rescue news.
Hey, can we back up for 1 second?
Yeah.
If you're gonna do this in the winter, I've heard horror stories. I mean, there's no real easy way to do this in the winter. And I've heard stories of people just like bailing out and just bushwhacking down to the Success Pond Road and stuff like that. I mean, if you're going to do it in the winter, man, make sure you know what you're doing, because that's like a death wish for sure. Right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, I know there was a crew that did it a few years ago. Like they did a single day Mahoosuc Traverse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how the hell they did it. Like I don't get it, but I wouldn't mess around too much in the winter up there unless you know what you're doing. Like you can get in from Grafton Notch, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
You can get in from Rattle River, but I don't know how you get to the center sections. I mean, it's got to be a beastly backpacking trip in the winter. I don't know. My guess is that like nothing's broken out. Like there's ways to get up there. I'm sure that you can get in through like snowmobile trails
snowmobiles
and whatnot,
would
but
break that out. Yeah. But still, you're bushwhacking down to get to those roads through deep snow because you'd be looking west. And I mean, yeah, just be careful if you're thinking about doing something like that.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
definitely.
Just a side note.
All right.
Back to search and
Thank
rescue.
you. You're always thinking about keeping people safe, Stomp. I like it. So,
That's right. Because I'm getting exhausted.
Nice. So I've been talking a lot, Stomp, but I'll do the first search and rescue, and then if you can just run through the rest of them.
Yeah, you bet.
That'll be good. But so this first one I wanted to pull up just because it's not in the New England area or New Hampshire. This is a hiker. Her body was found 2 years after she went missing in the North Cascade Mountain Range, which I think is Washington. So this is Rachel Lacaduke of Moses Lake. She went missing in October of 2019. She told her family she was planning to hike this trail system to a cabin and then spend the night to celebrate her birthday. And they found the vehicle at the trailhead, but like the search crews, they weren't able to locate her. They went to the tower. They didn't see her. The weather turned bad while she was hiking, and she didn't make it off the mountain. Apparently there is it's not a search and rescue organization, but it's another type of organization that specifically will do search and recovery after search and rescue has basically done everything they can do. This organization will continue to do searches, and they were able to locate her body 2 years after she had been missing, which it's really sad, but I'm sure that it brings the family a lot of peace to know that she's back with them, and at least her remains are found. But the reason I wanted to bring it up, Stomp, is I was kind of curious. Like, there's nothing like that in the New Hampshire area that I can think of, right?
Not that I'm aware of. Not any organization, anyway.
Yeah.
Just private efforts, I'm sure. But I can't recall any particular agency that would do that after the fact.
Yeah. And there's not that many, I don't know of that many cases where there's, missing people that haven't been located. I know there's, that Stefan Sue case off of Mount Washington, but I don't even know if he was ever in Mount Washington. So
yeah.
I can't think of any other. There's another guy named Kevin Race that supposedly went missing on Tuckerman, but that's another case where it's dubious because there was some financial shenanigans going on there. So I can't think of anybody else that's missing like this for so long.
Yeah. 2 years. Wow.
Yeah,
but that's really great.
Yeah. So anyway, want to get into New Hampshire stuff?
Yes, this is a quattro. We had 4 days in a row where we were out responding to calls, and it was, of course, in the hottest weather of the summer, the sticky, humid weather. The rocks were all soaked and just damp and slippery. And the first one of the series came in on August 12th. There was a call to Fish and Game for a hiker that was having a heat-related illness on the Old Bridle Path. And the Old Bridle Path is the northern side of the Franconia Loop, which starts, Falling Waters, then over to Lafayette, and then down Old Bridle. This person was having some heat issues and was overheating and just could not continue on. They tried to rehydrate and cool down. His condition worsened. The hiker's name was Dennis Fleming of Waltham, Massachusetts, and he and 2 other people had departed earlier that day, spending one night on Garfield Ridge, which is the northern wall of the Pemi Loop. They used most of their water the previous day and then hit Greenleaf Hut on the way down towards Old Bridle Path. They got more water there, thankfully. That is a great resource if you're up on the loop on a hot day. But boy, I'm telling you, that heat that day was just so awful. I think that morning I went out and maybe went up to the overlook here at Welch Dickey, and I said, that's it. I'm done. So I went home by 11. It's just not the best time to get out in this stuff. So yeah, we ended up getting to this fella, tried to cool him off the best we could, and then carried him down by litter and got him out safe.
I think that was day one of our through hike, and that weather was just insane.
Yeah, awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
And then we have rescue number 2. This is somebody that was, I may be getting these dates wrong, I apologize. I'm looking at this tiny little screen here. But a hiker rescued from the Kinsman Ridge Trail. Now, this is the northern side of the Kinsman Ridge Trail. So if anybody's hiked this one, it's 2 miles straight to the top of Cannon, and it was funny, last week I was on vacation with some of my daughters. They came up, and it was fantastic seeing them, and we went to Whale's Tail one day, and that's all I can compare this damn trail to. This is the worst trail by far, in my opinion, my humble opinion, in the Whites. It's like a gully. It's like going down a gravel water slide. It's the first half of it anyway. And then when you get to the switchbacks on the second half, just giant mangled boulders. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible trail. Apologies to anybody that love it. I'm not in that category. So yes, this hiker was coming down and suffered a lower leg injury coming down the trail. And remember, the rocks were just soaked, very slippery. PEMI responded with fish and game officers, and another day of extreme heat and humidity. The hiker was up about just under a mile up the trail. And that mile, like I said, that mile is a brutal mile. And have you ever done this one, Mike? You haven't, have you?
What is the trail again?
Because this goes right to Cannon, because you're saving Cannon for your finale.
Yeah, I haven't done it. Yeah, I've done Fish and Jimmy.
Okay.
Up to the Kinsmans.
Okay, so let's just jump back to your adventure here. So how are you going to get up to Cannon? Is it going to be the Lonesome Lake side or the Tram side?
So just for the audience, I'm going to be doing like one hike to finish the 52 with the views, the terrifying 25, and the 4,000 footer. So I'm going to go PEMI to Flume Slide, down Liberty Springs, up Lonesome Lake, and then I think I'm going High Cannon to Cannon Mountain, and then down into the Cannon parking lot. So I don't know what trail that's going to take me to.
Yeah, you're probably going to come down this trail that we're talking about right now.
Okay.
So let's just talk about it. This fella hit this one portion in particular. This 62-year-old hiker was coming down the trail, and he hit a section where there's just this I don't know, maybe 50-degree slope of slippery ledge, and he slid and fell 20 feet down to the bottom of that, and that's when he got scraped up and injured. So just be aware of that one, Mike. It's a crazy section, but after that portion, then it's probably a quarter to half a mile of bouldery switchbacks, which I don't know. I read these stories and sometimes I think, oh man, these stories are sort of redundant, but here's a little inside baseball. This section of trail is so difficult that we really couldn't carry this individual with, say, 6 or 8 people and, walk 20 feet. This was probably 70 to 80% what we call a handoff, where we just have people line up on either side of the trail in front of the litter as we're heading down trail, and we just pass it off because there's no way that you can safely keep your footing without getting injured. So from where this guy injured himself for the next half mile, it's just brutal.
Oh my God.
It's brutal.
That must just take forever.
It did. I mean, the numbers are here. I think we got to him by like 3:45 and got out by 6. So you're talking less than a mile. It took us at least 2 hours to get down. Put it in perspective. It's just really difficult. So that was a fun one.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
I think I saw some pictures of that on like somewhere in social media. That was like a big crowd. So you got a good army of people there.
Yeah, I mean, the volunteers, I mean, hats off to the volunteers that show up for these missions, especially 4 days in a row in this extreme heat. I just can't say enough. I'm just floored by the dedication and passion that the team members have. It's just amazing.
Nice.
Yeah. So now here's number 3. This might be a little more inside baseball too, because everybody saw the story, everybody saw the pictures. The Jewell Trail is just basically to the left side of the cog. You have the Ammonoosuc Trail to the right side of the cog. Generally, people go up the Ammonoosuc and hit the Hut and hit the summit of Mount Washington and then come down Jewell. So regardless, this individual started having a medical emergency. So Army National Guard was called in to see if they could get in there quick and extract the person, because in some cases where people have medical emergencies, there's no other best option other than to get them to the hospital as quick as possible, and that's where the Air National Guard comes in. They flew in from Concord, arriving at about 2:48 p.m. If it's cloudy or if it's overcast, if there's a low ceiling, quote unquote, where they just have no visibility, they can't get in there to do their job. So it was such a strange day. When this call came in, apparently everything was socked in, and there were just these brief windows where everything would clear out and a front of high pressure would roll through, and then boom, that would pass, and then all of a sudden the clouds would drop. So from what I understand, the Black Hawk tried initially to get to these people and were unsuccessful. They ran out of gas, or they ran low on gas, had to go refuel in Maine, and then they came back, and thankfully, providentially, the clouds let go for just a small window of time, and they were able to extract the individual and take them out. And long story short, this is the quote from the report. The exhaustive efforts by the hiker's sons. Apparently, they were trying to treat him for a couple hours. Here it is. Yeah, CPR for 2.5 hours. It was unsuccessful, and the individual passed.
Yeah, I can't imagine like how the sons must. It's unimaginable.
Yeah, and what's crazy about this, I got pictures from some of the members as they were leaving, and they showed basically what had happened after the Black Hawk left, and basically that ceiling dropped again. So it's just crazy the way it all works out.
Yeah.
Had they not been able to get the individual out, that would have meant a recovery, which means that a rescue team goes up with a litter and carries the deceased body out. Trying on everybody, trying on the volunteers and the family. It's a very challenging, emotional time for everybody.
Well, I just imagine like the sons they got to hike down and rush to their car and get to the hospital, and it must be just a crazy experience. So it's just tough. But it's like we talked about this with Chris from Solo when he was here. Like all of the infrastructure is set up with this idea that you're within like 20-30 minutes of a medical support area or hospital or whatever, but like when you're on the mountains, it's just not the reality. So
yeah, exactly. Good old Jewell.
Yeah.
So I think we have 2 more here. I'll just zip through it. Here's a repeat. It's is this the same one? No, a 31-year-old female that suffered a lower leg injury on the same trail, Old Bridle path. She was about 1.5 miles up. Pemmy joined in with New Hampshire Fish and Game, and were able to stabilize her and carry her out by litter. And everybody arose back to the trailhead at about 5:10 p.m., where she was taken to a local hospital and treated. Sorry, I'm zipping through that one because it's sort of deja vu. Yeah. And then finally, a medical emergency on Mount Major. Monday, August 16th. So much going on in this week. It's incredible. Mount Major, which is in Alton, it's one of these lower peaks that is heavily trafficked. This hiker, 68-year-old out of Concord, New Hampshire, was hiking with his daughter when he just passed out while descending from the summit. And they were about 1/4 mile down the blue trail from the summit, which I guess would leave about a mile left. When officers and Alton Fire Department personnel arrived, it was about 3:45, and they determined that this was a medical emergency and that he would need to be carried down the mountain. I'm just trying to piece in this DART piece here. Additional help was called in from Guilford and Gilmanton fire departments, along with our brothers and sisters in SAR, Lakes Region Search and Rescue. And they carried the person about 1/2 mile to the fire department side by side, which is a variation on an all-terrain vehicle.
Yep.
And they went about another 3/4 of a mile. And, I see. So DART was just called for assistance and was waiting at the trailhead. But in this case, they went to Concord Hospital for treatment.
Very busy. Very busy. So, hey, Stomp, have I told you about the guy that is on the Fish and Game Facebook page? He's on a mission.
Okay.
He is I think. So I've reached out to him because I want to have him on the show, but he basically is like, no, I don't trust you guys because you're gonna like set me up or something, which I have no intention of doing that. But basically, like as far as I can tell, this guy is like a hunter or a fisherman or like something like that. And every time that there's a rescue, he's like, he doesn't trust us, which I get. I understand that. I wouldn't trust me either. He's like a hunter or a fisherman or whatever, and his whole beef is that every time there's a rescue, he is like, did they buy a hike safe card? And like he's uncovered like somehow, like I think most of the rescues that have happened this year, there's only been like 1 or 2 people that have actually had a hike safe card. So his whole beef, and maybe he has a point, I don't know. His whole beef is that like you have to buy a fishing license, you have to buy a hunting license, you have to register your vehicle, your ATV, you have to register your snowmobile, you have to register like your boat or whatever. And he's like, all that money goes to support Fish and Game, but the hikers, when they have rescues, like unless they buy a hike safe card, like they're just free riding. So he's basically, his whole thing is like all hikers should be required to have a license to be out hiking regardless of where they are, to pay for search and rescue. So
let me save my research on that because I have Fish and Game funding and how they work and how they've worked historically. And I think it's really interesting. Maybe we can cover that while he's on board. Because it's pretty eye-opening how the agency started, how they were funded, how they're currently funded, the deficits, how they make it. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, we'll save this for like a separate episode, but I wanted to bring it up just because I was thinking about it. But I also wanted to like bring this up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically just send this guy. So I've sent him a couple messages, and I'm like, dude, you should come on. It would be fun. And like all the hikers on social media like hate this guy. They're like yelling at him and stuff. So I get it. He's kind of like, I don't want to deal with you hikers. You're all, crazy. But I'm like trying to like soften it up a little bit with him. But he's like, no, I'm not coming on because I don't trust you guys. You're going to set me up. So I just want to bring it up. So I'll work on getting him on, and then we can do a deeper dive. But anyway, that was kind of an interesting segue.
Oh, it's great.
Cool.
It's so cool.
All right. So I've got a couple of other news stories, Stomp, that I wanted to go through with you. There's some cool stuff here that I've just been like collecting as it comes up. I just was like, oh, this will be good to talk to Stomp about.
Yeah, let's check it out. Couple funny
so this
ones.
first one is, have you heard about this guy, River Dave? He's like a hermit that lives on the Merrimack.
I have not heard about it until now.
Got it, yeah. So there's this guy, I don't even know, like, I'm so horrible, I should be doing more research, but he built...
He's 81.
81 years old. The guy built a cabin on like the Merrimack River. I don't even know what town it is, but basically what he's saying is that it's in Canterbury, I guess. So for 3 decades, this guy has lived in the woods along the Merrimack in a small cabin. He's got solar panels set up. He's been growing his own food. Like there's no road in there and no access, so he's completely off the grid. And apparently, like, nobody even knew he was there other than like, I guess he's known to like kayakers and he's not hiding like the guy up in Maine was hiding, but wasn't super well known. But apparently, his story is that he had permission by the original landowner to verbal to live there. And then, like, at some point, somebody in the town realized, I don't know, around 2015 or something, they realized that this guy was in this camp. And that started, like, this whole big thing where, like, the property owner, which is, like, another old guy that's in Vermont, was like, you got to get off the property. You don't live there. And, there's all these insurance concerns and all kinds of other stuff that, like, the property owner is basically like, I have to start proceedings to get this guy off of the property. And the owner of the land wants to tear the cabin down, blah, blah, blah. So there was some sort of a legal dispute where it went to court. They basically took River Dave, held him in contempt and put him in jail, or something happened. While he was in jail, his cabin mysteriously, like, burnt down.
Oh, yeah.
So clearly, like, and everybody seems to think that it was, like, clearly arson, that they wanted to get the guy out of there.
That's such a shame. Yeah,
there's a happy ending.
Well, they also used. I was like looking at this story from a legal perspective, and we can touch upon that. But so I think the legal side of it was also looking at the fact that he didn't have, like, a road and things like that to actually sustain a typical residence. So I think they were trying to use anything possible to get the guy out of there.
Yeah. And it's so funny, like, you always hear about these, like, squatter rules and all this stuff. And I see it on social media, like, people will be like, I'm in your house for 30 days. Now you have to, like, evict me or whatever. But, like, it seemed like this guy was pretty quickly kicked off. But there's a happy ending to this one. Matter of fact, I just read about it today. Is apparently there's some billionaire guy that lives in New Hampshire. Nice. His last name is Karp. And he's like the owner or the CEO of, like, this tech company called Palantir, I think, or something. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put the article. Yeah. But if this guy's listening to the show, by the way, like, if you need, like, a personal hiking guide or something, like Mr. Karp or whatever your name is,
personal
like,
physical therapist.
Yeah, hit me up. I'll retire and work for you. But anyway, this Karp guy heard the story about River Dave, and I don't know, he donated $180,000, and he found some place where River Dave can, like, build a new cabin on a river somewhere. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
When I read the story, I was thinking back to the old law school days and adverse possession. And in the story, it talks about two owners. So the guy was on the land for 27 years. And the first owner apparently gave him verbal permission to be there. So, in the common law, you have this thing called adverse possession. You have to meet these criteria, which is basically, living on the piece of land continuously. Hostile meaning, you're absolutely knowingly infringing upon the right of another owner. Open and notorious. It can't be hidden. You have to be out there every day doing your lawn. And I mean, stuff like that. Actual possession and exclusive, like you're the only one on there. So, I was curious, it doesn't really say, but if he had met the criteria for adverse possession, and in New Hampshire, that's 20 years. So you have to do that for 20 years. If he was on that land for 27 years, he probably has right to it. It's a good possibility. And what's interesting is when the second owner came in, I don't know exactly when it was, but it seems like a very small window. I want to say 5 years if I read the story correctly. So if he had achieved adverse possession and title to that land, the new owner wouldn't really have title to it. So it's really fascinating to think about. So there's your legal lesson today.
Yeah, so the whole thing's weird. For some reason, I read that, like, the landowner, it's been the same landowner for like 63 years, or since 1963, but I think possibly what may be going on is that, like, he had a deal with some relative, and then somebody else, that didn't own the land said, yeah, you can stay there, but it wasn't really their permission to give. So I don't know. Man, but anyway, there's another conspiracy theory about this guy where apparently, like, I live in the end of the Merrimack in Amesbury by Newburyport, and people don't realize this, but like when there's all kinds of stuff that gets dumped in the river. Like when we have huge rainstorms, like the cities upstream, like Haverhill and Lowell and God knows in New Hampshire, they just open up their sewage systems and just dump it into the river. Like they don't have any like sort of backup system. So like people don't realize like this is 2021, but like they basically just dump raw sewage into the river when they get these rainstorms. And I think that this guy caught some sort of dumping going on locally in the Merrimack and tipped people off. So I think that was part of like this whole conspiracy around like, oh, because River Dave caught people dumping stuff in the river, they were going to go after him to get rid of them or something. So there's a whole like local thing going on there that I don't really know a lot about, but I did hear about that.
This could be like a Hollywood movie. I mean, who would play River Dave?
Probably you, Stomp. You're old enough.
Me. Yeah, that's true. I've got the beard going on. I'll start training for it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I got three more things here. So, have you ever heard of a wood devil?
I have not.
Dude, I didn't know about this, but I was like, I don't know how I came across this, but I was on Reddit. Apparently, is it Coos County? Is that what we're calling it? Or Coos County, Coos County? Apparently, there's a thing called a wood devil, which is like it's a tall cryptid. So it's one of these like Sasquatch creatures. But apparently there's a wood devil, and like it's been spotted since like the 1900s, and it's only in like Coos County, but it's like it's like a super skinny, like tall, big-headed, looks like an alien, but it's like, apparently like wood devils have been spotted. So I found this on Reddit, and like people like, I'll link the pictures, but like people are like, oh yeah, I saw one of those in Nashua one time at the liquor store. So I'll link the picture, but because I'm doing research on a show where we're going to do like creepy New Hampshire around Halloween time.
It's a human body with arms and hands. The hands are like down to the knees, and the face is like some twisted Sesame Street character with no hair. It's like, it's so crazy looking.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll link this in the show notes, but I'm curious, like if anybody's up in like the North Country and has heard of a wood devil, like I think like you can just come on the show and talk to us about it like during the Halloween episode, because it's pretty funny.
I like how the post says, and apparently it lives in Coos County.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, so two more things here before we wrap up. One is a Maura Murray update. So I'm obsessed with Maura Murray. Right? Oh, yeah. So for anyone that's not familiar, Maura Murray was a college student at UMass Amherst. She took a drive up to Route 112. She had a car accident, went missing from the car accident shortly after being spotted by a couple of local people. Has never been seen since. I think this happened in 2004. It's probably the biggest missing person story in the true crime, unsolved mystery universe. And one weird thing, there was a blog article by Julie Murray that was posted on the MauraMurrayMissing.org website. And this is kind of a crazy story. Like, I don't want to knock law enforcement, but like when it comes to Maura Murray, like I'm underwhelmed with the approach that they've taken from doing detective work on this. So apparently, when a case like this happens, Stomp, wouldn't you think like, and I know it was in the early days of like forensics when it comes to computers and things like that, but like back in the day, like AOL Instant Message was like the big thing back then. So the police had access to Maura Murray's computer in her AOL chat logs, and
interesting. I didn't know that.
Apparently, like they didn't, for whatever reason, like track this down, but somehow Julie Murray became aware of the last person that Maura Murray was speaking with on AOL chat. So she was able to get the information somehow. I forget I'll link the article. It says it in there. But somehow she was able to get the information. Law enforcement never bothered to track this person down. Julie Murray got the information and realized that it was so before Maura Murray went to UMass, she was at West Point. The person that she was speaking to was a friend of Maura's from West Point. Julie also went to West Point. She was able to track this person down, speak to them, sort of get a little bit of background about what they were chatting about. This was the last person to speak to Maura Murray over AOL Instant Chat, had never been identified by the police and had never been spoken to by the police. And Julie Murray, like in probably, I don't know, it seems like the way the article made it sound is like it was like it took her just a little bit of legwork to actually do the research and find this. So the point is that like if this is uncovered like 15 years after the incident and you know they're just tracking this stuff down, really nothing came of it other than they were just friends and they were chatting. But the point is that if this information is just coming out now, what is there that the police never even tracked down in the early stages of the investigation that's just a thread hanging out there that could solve some mystery?
Any comment from the family or the father?
The family posted this update. They were like, basically, we did all the legwork. They did all the legwork on this, and they've come to find out that law enforcement never even tracked this person down, never spoke to them. And it was like just hanging out there, pretty easy to find. So
I'm surprised that all the other like investigative journalists didn't dig this up. I mean, you have all those Netflix shows and this and that, not Netflix, but wherever they were. There were so many people digging into this. Like that's a late discovery.
I mean, the whole universe around Maura Murray, I mean, it's very like there's a ton of trolls and crazy people. So I think it's at the point where law enforcement and the family, anybody that approaches them, like they don't want anything to do with them because most of them are crazy. So,
wow, it's still a tragedy.
Let's dive into some White Mountains history, shall we?
Cool. So last thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up, unless you have something, is during Martin Pisani's last episode, me and him were messaging back and forth. By the way, like, thank God for Martin. Like, we had a recording error on the show. Like, we couldn't find his audio. Luckily, our software system, we were able to pull it up, but thank God. But Martin was cool. He was like, I'll record again if I need to. But he had mentioned that Mowgli Trail that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of research. So there's an article. Me and Martin were just talking about, like, I wonder if it has to do with the Jungle Book. And I think the guy's name is Rudyard Kipling is the writer. And I was like, I know there's a Mowgli Trail on Mount Cardigan. So apparently the reason why there's a naming convention for Mowgli is that there was a lady around the 1900s that, there's actually a Mowgli Mountain, which is a sub-peak of Mount Cardigan. So all of the names are inspired by the classic book in 1894 it was written by Rudyard Kipling. Yeah. And apparently there was a around the turn of the century, there was a Boston educator named Elizabeth Ford Holt, which I'm assuming the Holt Trail must be named after her or her family on Cardigan. She was inspired by the Jungle Book stories. So she had reached out to Kipling and had gotten permission to borrow the names from his Jungle Books to use for the buildings in her camp, her camp is by Newfound Lake. So I'm assuming that they also use these trails for, these trail names as part of that camp that they were involved in. So that's sort of there's a whole history there that I read about in the Laconia Daily Sun. So I'll link that article for you to check out. But that kind of explains part of that Mowgli Trail that you were talking about.
Okay, I did send you the image of the trail sign. See, here's my question about it. I know there's a trail up Cardigan, but from Cardigan north all the way up to Plymouth Mountain, I've done probably half a dozen trails that have this trail sign with this, I don't know, maybe it's a goat, maybe it's something. And it just makes me think that maybe in the olden days, or who knows how far back, there was a system that might have, stretched from Cardigan north. And I just can't put that piece together because I've seen the same exact trail sign on multiple peaks on that side of the Whites.
Yeah, I mean, the picture, and again, we'll put this in the show notes, I mean, that looks like a wood devil that's bent over, personally, in my opinion. But, no, I mean, maybe, who you could probably check with, like, Steve Smith, see what he knows about it.
Meave Myth?
At the Mountain Wanderer bookstore. So
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I will figure this out, but that's great history.
Yeah, but if anybody knows anything about that Mowgli Trail that Stomp is talking about, let us know. But that's it. A lot of stuff here. We're probably pushing 2 hours, so I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, great show. Good to be back in the saddle without guests.
Yes, yeah, exactly. We love guests, but sometimes it's just good to wrap.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered on today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information on SLASRpodcast.com. That's SLASR podcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until next time, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one hill!
Here's Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.